Hello, I am back. I am Steven, host of the Ballistic Autistic podcast and show, and obviously, I hope you enjoy enjoy what I do today. And for those who have actually seen past videos, which is probably very minute because I've still barely started, been super regular. Um, so I'm just gonna jump into this, and I would love feedback going forward. Um, this video may be a wee bit long. I'm hoping because I'm gonna be combining a few different things. So to get started, love feedback if it felt like I need to break each segment into its own individual video, or possibly maybe just keep doing it the way I'm doing it and include multiple articles and multiple segments into one video. If it catches your fancy, I'm still figuring this out and just going to keep going. So, uh, if you're new to the show, I try my best to find fun, positive, and insightful articles on autism. I myself am autistic, and I'm just going to keep going because hopefully you've looked into my early episodes in my podcast, audio form. I'm still trying to get used to the video stuff, but my audio form early episodes are all on Anchor and Spotify and other podcasting platforms. But I'm going to try and keep putting everything available also video form. And as course, I will keep linking all stories that I cover into any show notes. So let's jump right into this first article that I have up from spectrumnews.org. And this is going to be a long article because it's really interesting. Meet the company trying to precision medicine for autism. So the subtitle here, Swiss biotech. Now, please forgive me with pronunciations because I'm guessing this is Swiss. Stalicla. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce this. Hopes to bring precision medicine to autism. Experts praise efforts to identify autism subgroups, but evidence to support the company's claims has yet to be seen. And that'll be addressed into this article. So I'm just going to start reading because I think this is actually really interesting because it'll also bring something that we can talk about too is a big divide in the autism community of being cured of our autism. So let's just jump right into it. 5 years ago, Lynn Durham founded a biotech startup called, man, this name's going to be a pain in the butt. Stalicla. That aims to do what nobody has achieved so far. Tailor pharmacological therapies to idiopathic. No, I think I had it right. Idiopathic autism subgroups, or those who have autism with no known genetic cause. To date, the company, which is based in Switzerland, has secured 29 million Swiss francs, $30 million. Swiss francs are really cool looking. Sorry, I'm going on tangent, but I used to do currency exchange for a little bit, and those are definitely one of the cooler currencies that came in. All right, going back, and developed a machine learning platform that sorts autistic people into different subgroups based on shared biological signatures, then identifies drugs that it hopes will reverse such signatures. So I kind of look at it, what they're trying to do is essentially address medications to subsede certain characteristic traits of the autism, or essentially addressing some of the symptoms. So, like if you have a cold, you have aches, you have a runny nose, you have you're sweating and diarrhea. It's like here's the different subsets of what the overall problem is. But if we can address each symptom individually and have a medicine for it, I think that's what their essential goal is going to be, to alleviate some of those things, like maybe sensory problems or neurological health, dietary, maybe, I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I'm an idiot, whatever. In March, Stalicla, man, that's embarrassing, announced that his lead drug candidate, STP-1, indicated for a subset of autistic people, is safe and elicited improvements in markers of brain function. Stalicla's scientific officers also say preliminary results suggest that STP-1 eases some behavioral difficulties associated with autism. David Beversdorf, professor of radiology, neurology, and psychological science at the University of Missouri in Columbia, was so convinced by Stalicla's approach that he joined its clinical advisory board. If you can biologically define subtypes that have specific treatment responses, that's fantastic, he says. God, so like more or less kind of like what I'm thinking. Maybe we're on the same page. But the company has not revealed what machinations of its platform or full trial results, which means there's still little for the public to learn. Though identifying autism subtypes based on biological signatures to predict drug responses seems a reasonable approach, says Valerie Hugh, professor emeritus of biochemistry and molecular medicine of George Washington University in Washington, D.C. For now, we have to wait and see what the results are. Durham doesn't remember a time when she didn't know the word autism. Both her parents were health professionals dedicated to the condition, and she has a brother and a son who are people with autism. She has met hundreds of autistic people, and she says that the first thing you learn is that when you've seen one person with autism, you've seen one person with autism. Yes, that is a fantastic saying that, because it's true. It's because I mean I never really met another autistic person that's 100% like me. That's why it's a spectrum. All right, moving on. So, Durham is well aware that autistic people have unique strengths and difficulties and experience their conditions in different ways. Yeah. She knows this heterogeneity has hampered progress on pharmacological interventions, including with her son, who responded inconsistently to early behavioral intervention therapies aimed to helping him express feelings, form relationships, and speak. At the time, Durham was working at the University of Geneva in Switzerland. That's cool. Where part of her job was helping to promote oncology personalized medicine programs. She began toying with the idea of applying precision medicine to neurodevelopmental conditions and launched Stalicla. Man, I hope I learned to pronounce that right. In May 2017, with the help of many mentors, she raised 4 million Swiss francs in seed funding and set about building her team. What is that? I wish they put the money there. I mean, 29. So it's pretty similar in comparison, if I remember correctly. Okay, here we're back. All right. She recruited experts in system biology, clinical trials, and oncology, a field that has contributed to precision medicine approaches. For example, Stalicla's chief medical officer, Baltazar Gomez Mansilla, held management roles in clinical neuroscience and biomarker development at the Swiss pharmaceutical company this is always hard to do. Novartis, and led clinical trials of an experimental drug for Fragile X syndrome, though they were eventually halted after research found no benefit for autistic teenagers and adults. Unlike approaches that identify autism subtypes by using behavioral tests, Stalicla uses biological traits such as an autistic person's head size and co-occurring conditions and its combinations with the person's genetic data and health records. The company has also collected blood samples from hundreds of autistic people to analyze the metabolites and quantify gene expression across all genes presented in blood cells. Once the data are fed into the company's platform, machine learning algorithms group people based on shared biological signatures. So this is where it actually gets interesting, the combination of those things. To identify tailored therapies, the company uses transcriptomic data to generate a specific gene expression profile for each group. Then the platform parses existing drug screening repositories to find a drug or a mix of drugs that might reverse the transcriptomic profile associated with each autism group, says Laura Perez Cano, Stalicla's head of discovery. Finally, the researchers test candidate drug in cell lines derived from the people with the identified autism subgroups to assess whether the treatment might reverse their metabolic or transcriptomic signatures. Using this approach, Stalicla has identified 2 drug candidates that might elicit responses in 2 groups of autistic people. Okay, we're almost there. A similar approach has been used in oncology, where an increasing number of treatment options have received regulatory approval on the basis of molecular profiling of various cancer types, says the company's chief technology officer, Emre Gunny. We are not reinventing the wheel, he says. So this is where they get into the subgroups, for those listening. Stalicla's platform has so far labeled two subtypes of autism dubbed ASD phenotype 1 and ASD phenotype 2. People with the ASD phenotype 1 group were observed to have more moderate to severe autism traits. High hyperactivity scores on the behavioral rating scale that measure stereotypes and other traits, and likely impaired processing speed. That sounds exactly like me. I mean, like everyone's on high SSD speeds, and I feel like I'm still stuck on a floppy at sometimes. I'm using a floppy disk. All right. Lymphoblastoid cell lines derived from the blood of people in this group show abnormalities in the production of the cyclic AMP, a signal molecule involving in learning and memory, which I've always wanted to try more biohacking with myself, like nootropics and stuff like that. I gotta, if anyone has a recommendation on good nootropics, I'd be willing to try them, because I've heard like I think lion's mane. I know a lot of mushrooms, but I just, there's so many out there. You just never know a good, reliable one. Previous research has shown that those with Fragile X syndrome who have a variety of autism-like traits have low cyclic AMP. Stalicla's team identified STP1 as a potential therapy for people grouped into ASD phenotype 1. STP1 is a mixture of a PDE4 inhibitor, ibudilast, and a NKCC1 antagonist. Oh my gosh, big words. Hopefully I get smarter from doing all this research. Okay, in its phase 1B trial conducted at the Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center in Ohio, I wonder if I can interview someone from there. Stalicla's enrolled 12 autistic adults with a biological profile consistent with ASD phenotype 1. Every day for 2 weeks, one group received 2 pills, one in the morning and one in the evening, containing 5 milligrams of the ibudilast and 1 milligram of the bumine tandide. Probably not pronouncing that right. Another group received 10 milligrams. Okay, so they went from 5 to 10 of the same things. I am going to try to avoid reading these big words as much as possible, because I've already said them and attempted once. And a third group received a placebo. The drug combination was well tolerated. Sorry, I want to try and be accurate. Was well tolerated, and side effects were mild and transient. The company says that STP1 treatment appeared to result in a dose-dependent reduction of intensity of gamma waves, a type of brainwave related to attentional learning across the whole brain and in specific regions involved in memory and executive function. Previous studies have shown that people with autism have differences in their gamma rhythms. Compared with people who receive a placebo, those treated with STP1 also showed dose-dependent improvements in tests measuring cognitive function in the questionnaires that measure autism traits and social abilities. Gomez says, I think we can be excited about that. Ibudilast improved cognitive condition and behavior in men with the Fragile X syndrome in a small clinical trial. I mean, if this is the same one of like 12 people, that's very tiny. I wonder when they're looking at doing I'll join it. I'll join the bigger group. Sign me up. You get the placebo. It's for science. A 2020 clinical trial found that only some of the children who received bumetanide for 3 months showed reduced repetitive behaviors. Through studies over the past 2 years have suggested that the patterns of electrical activity in the brain or levels of specific immune molecules in the blood can predict a person's response to the drug. Last year, however, phase 3 studies of the bumetanide were ended after researchers found no benefit in the treatment. Oh, that's the bummer part. I missed that part when I read over it. I skimmed it really fast. It's an excellent drug for autism, provide you select specific subpopulations of young people, says Yersical Ben Ari, president and co-founder of the French biotech firm company Neuroclore, which owns the patent for bumetanide and autism treatment. Adults, he adds, may not respond well. The 2020 trial found that younger children showed more improvement in social communication and responsiveness than older ones did. Beyond the questions around the bumetanide, others doubt that the personalized therapy can be applied to autism at all. Many people have hoped for precision medicine, but generally the field of autism has moved away to some degree, says Catherine Lord, distinguished professor at the Psychiatry of Psychiatry at the University of California, Los Angeles. That's because she says, for something as complex and heterogeneous as autism, there is no clear link between known genetic factors and autism traits. Researchers have not yet had success in finding biomarkers for diagnosis of the condition, let alone predicting who is most likely to respond to the treatment, she says, which is very important. Understanding the more convergent mechanisms of autism and what is common about people with autism rather than what's different about them is more important approach to understanding what's treatable or preventable in the condition, says John Castantino, professor of psychiatry and pediatrics at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. A molecular footprint found only in a subgroup of people with autism may have nothing to do with the condition and instead be related to other factors such as depression or anxiety. Castantino says. So far, he adds, researchers haven't been able to reliably differentiate people with autism from those without the condition by looking at biological traits. Identifying a biological profile for different autism subtypes would be a significant advancement in the field. He says, if Stalicla, I was doing so good with their name, or supposed name, has actually done it. Okay. We're getting to the bottom, people. Okay. After raising its seed capital, Stalicla raised another 25 million Swiss francs. In total, the company has about 12 investors, including venture capitalists, pharma, family offices, private equity groups, and angel investors, Durham says. Most of that group is Swiss, but Stalicla aims to raise 40 million Swiss francs in venture funding from investors in the United States and across Europe, and is planning a larger phase 2 trial of STP1 in 60 people with ASD phenotype 1 and phase 2 trial of the second candidate drug. So the downside to this is because, let's put it this way. There's been big debate since COVID has happened about the divide of the view on medicine, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. It is within their interest to create a drug, especially when you consider the amount of people with autism, to create a drug, especially more so in their incentive to stick to it, find the drug that will be a lifelong medication. Like someone with diabetes, they're going to be taking insulin until they die, and quite literally that. So that's where the hope is like they realize, like, okay, that's where this capital is coming in, because hey, if it works out and they find something that is moderately helpful that they can market and sell, that's money till the end of days, because more and more people being diagnosed with autism, and especially if you have multiple forms of the drug that are better, that work better for children and that work better with adults. And if it's kind of in the idea of what biohacking the brain, what's not the possibility of it doing better, helping people be smarter, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know how else. Let's just put it that way. Okay. Moving on. The company also hopes to apply its platform beyond neurodevelopmental conditions, perhaps in neuropsychiatry disorders, Durham says. Relying on existing drugs makes sense because most of their mechanisms of action are well understood. Beversdorf says, this approach enables companies to move more quickly to advanced trials with fewer costs. Some of the drugs have already proved safe in early stage studies. So, that was kind of the point when COVID happened in the first place. Scientists were looking at stuff that already existed. There was a reason why they looked at antiviral AIDS medications, and they were having, I wish I could remember this study, but there was some success with that. And that's essentially what the Pfizer's new drug for COVID is, essentially, if I remember correctly. But don't trust me on that. I could be wrong. More data about the platform and the trials will help to validate Stalicla's approach. The company says that it is The company says that is coming from now. It won't communicate the platform's technical details because of the pending patent application, but says that the STP-1 trial results should be made public in the coming months. For those who are doubtful about Stalicla's possibilities, Durham understands the criticism but also dismisses it. I mean, he's a positive guy. I don't blame him for that. Those comments come from academia, she says, where the benchmark is publishing. I like that. Our benchmark for this clinical results that we generate. What they describe as doing is what everyone wants to do. So I think it's an admirable goal, Lord says. If Stalicla's approach works, it would make an incredible contribution. But, she adds, if it's not transparent and reproducible by others, it's more business than science. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's true. Okay. Moving on. I thought this one was a good one. Now, this is the only thing that's a little bummer. This is actually... Oops, gotta get rid of these stupid cookie. I forgot. There we go. I thought this was really interesting. This is actually from the UK regarding a new mental health bill that looks like they'll be putting through. So this is a very short article, but there was actually a really, really crazy statistic in here. So let's start with here. The government has drafted its draft bill, to change, publish its draft bill. So obviously the link takes you to it. So like again, the link for this article, and actually I'll probably, I am going to add a separate link to this bill for those interested. I think I have a few based on Spotify's algorithm. Some of you are from the UK, so maybe you'll find it interesting. To change mental health laws in England and Wales. This is a huge step forward in the campaign to stop the scandal of autistic people being wrongly detained and stuck in mental health hospitals. But it must be accompanied by urgent investment in social care and mental health services so that autistic people have the right support in the community. The draft bill proposes some important changes for autistic people, including changing the definition of mental disorder in the Mental Health Act so it no longer includes autism, which should help prevent the wrongful detention of autistic people who do not have mental health condition. Introducing a duty for councils, NHS England, and local health decision makers to provide enough of the right community services to prevent autistic people reaching crisis point and having to stay in an institution because there's nowhere else to go. I mean, that's a problem. I mean, the one thing I haven't really found, and because the numbers kind of vary, but the amount of people that are homeless in the United States that are autistic, well, a lot of people don't really think. Cause, I mean, think about how much of their family essentially abandons them. I mean, I wish there was a better way to put it. Making care and treatment review actions enforceable, helping autistic people get discharged from hospitals sooner. And that apparently that was a big issue of just getting them out. Okay, so campaign for autistic people's rights. We and hundreds of thousands of campaigners have been calling for reforms for years so that the law respects autistic people's rights. Autism is not a mental health condition, and mental health hospitals are not the right place for the vast majority of autistic people. Yet some spend many months, even years, in hospitals many miles from their families, and we continue to hear deeply concerning reports of over-medication and inappropriate restraint and seclusion, which, I mean, like, if you saw or listened to my podcast about the C thing, like, the biggest issue is, like, a horrible idea of, like, the whole restraining them when they're having a meltdown. Like, okay. Alongside autistic people and families, we will keep campaigning for better support and services. We are also helping autistic people and families who are detained or at risk of detention directly via our Autism Inpatient Mental Health Casework Service in England. Okay, so this is where we get into the crazy statistics. So NHS data released this month highlights the urgency of the situation. In May of 2020, so these are up to date from that point, so this is just this last month, 2,010 autistic people and people with learning disabilities are inpatient mental health hospitals in England. So of that 1,210, 61% of these people are autistic. Now we're not talking about, like, that's just of those from the numbers above. So keep that in mind, because we're not talking about those who have, say, schizophrenia or other mental health issues that are being treated for. despite some progress, now one tiny bit, because if you think about the over totality, it's there is a bit of misleading there. Because why don't you give the totality of how many people are actually being in the care of these mental institutions, so, like, to get an idea of the total? But just the fact that there is 1,200 autistic, I'm assuming, mostly, yeah, because I'm forgetting the next one, because around 185 of those people are under 18, like adults that they're just not in the right environment that is cohesive to a healthy lifestyle for them. It's just ridiculous. Despite some progress in moving people with learning disabilities out of the hospital and into the community, the number of autistic people in inpatient facilities has increased. In 2015, autistic people made up 38% of the number in hospital. Now it is 61%. This is the other thing. This because they're not giving if it's the total of people that are being cared for in these mental health facilities. So that's the only thing. I wish I could get better numbers. I'm gonna be better. I promise. I'm gonna be better at doing kind of research. I'm just getting back into the habit of doing these videos, and we're gonna work on it. We're gonna work on it. Despite, the publication of the draft of mental health amendment bill is an important first step, but it will take years to come into force and won't end the scandal on its own. We also need urgent investment in social care and mental health services so that autistic people have the right support in the community and don't reach crisis in the first place. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point, is like, what got him there, and is there an intervening point that is, one, can you intervene sooner, where it's like they're not at that breaking point where it's no, I mean, money wise, like, think about it, like, were they holding a job and then they got to a breaking point where they had a burnout and they quit their job or got fired because they had a meltdown at work? Is there a way to intervene with that? I mean, this is just some of the stuff coming to mind. Oh my god, this video is getting long. Okay, one last thing. Oops. So this is Jeremy Andrew Davis, and I'm just now getting into TikTok because I thought it'd be interesting to find, because there's a lot of autistic TikTokers. I'm like, why not do my own? But I watched the newest Love on the Spectrum, and I'll do my own breakdown. But one of the things, like, he did such a good job breaking it down. A shout out for my boy JD. I'm just gonna call him JD because I'm not saying the whole thing. Jeremy Andrew Davis on TikTok, but JD did an awesome job of doing, like, the breakdown, and did a job because he's actually funny. I thought it was funny. So breakdown. So let's watch it together and break down what I love about this video.
Dude, have you seen the show Love on the Spectrum? Yeah. Those people are just so sweet. My heart goes out to them and I wish that they could all find love. What? Autistics aren't wounded puppies that you should want to cuddle.
Yes.
You didn't like Love on the Spectrum? After watching the show, are you interested in dating an autistic?
Dude, this is what I missed the first go around, the first season, or the first two that they did that were Australia. I mean, I was just excited, like, okay, there's some, and my naivete got the better of me, because I was just like, all right, let's just see it. And, you know, I enjoyed dumb reality stuff like that, and when it's just mindless, and I'm trying to be better at recognizing the insensitivities of certain things. Like, I mean, I recognize, like, I was, like, mad about the Sia movie music, but because that one was like a blatant, like, disregard, especially after what her blew up tweet about, you know, clapping back at that one actress, I forget who it was, but, you know, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Let JD finish.
If you had an autistic partner, would you see them as an equal now? I can't answer that. So the way the show talks about autistic people, how it talks to autistic people, and just its creative choices, from how it's edited to the music that it's chosen, it all infantilizes autistic people, making you pity us.
This is a really good point, because it is a reality show in the end. It's not a documentary series. They're trying to keep you captivated in a certain way, and it's definitely, like, taken on as a reality show. I wish I had the other one that he did about it, but and I definitely didn't catch it. So the big thing, because it was the little subtle thing. One of the things that they did, they kind of intentionally make some of the conversations more awkward. Actually, you know what? Before I keep going, let's just finish
It
this.
doesn't show us as being as worthy of agency as you are. What's wrong with having pity? And why do you keep saying us? You didn't know I'm autistic. What? You can't be very autistic. You're not that socially awkward.
Very.
The spectrum doesn't refer to a range of severity. It's sensory, language, motor function, perception, executive function, routines. It's not linear. All the
Probably the executive function with me when it comes to this podcast has been definitely an issue.
same, the show is raising awareness for autism, which should help you. The show perpetuates a very narrow definition of autism and doesn't even show the racial diversity of autism.
Mexican autistic. I mean, in the programs that I was the only person of any, like, not, I was the only person not white. Like, it was just all a bunch of Caucasian guys and two girls, which was like, I was surprised we even had two girls in the program.
It should be addressing the ableism around the autistic participants, but instead it gaslights the participants into believing that in order to find love, they have to act as neurotypical as possible. The show is literally worsening ableism through pity porn.
I didn't feel like they were really forcing to be neurotypical. That's the only thing I kind of disagree with. Like, I guess I would have to rewatch it to see it, but to me, it didn't blatantly feel like they were trying to make. I mean, they all went. Maybe they had a lot of stereotypical dates, but I mean, that's just the only thing. Just that's the only thing I kind of disagree. But I love everything else.
Pity porn. Pity porn. Dude, have you seen...
All right, so again, so going back to what I was mentioning earlier, he brought a really great point of their editing style. So, there's a term in the editing, if I remember correctly, it's Frankensteining a scene. So they will literally offset timing of video to audio. So, perfect example you brought up in another clip of another TikTok was that they will intentionally elongate or add extra nodding to add more pausing. Like if a moment kind of seemed like an awkward question or interaction, so they intentionally increase the awkwardness with their editing style and choices. So that's where it's like I didn't catch it, and oh yeah, you kind of go back to certain clips. It's like, oh yeah, it's like you just see one person's he even said one person's still talking, you see them mouthing, but they cut that audio, but you just see the one person nodding. So it's just so there was not so flattering editing intentionally made by the production. Who do we blame for that? I would like to know. I would have to go back and look through the credits of the executive producer and editor, and I'd be very curious and maybe reach out to them. I got to figure out more of this because this is looking at this. It's been so much fun and fascinating when I finally am in the mood to do it. And it's so hard to put it because I feel like I have to put the green screen, I have to put up all this stuff, but it's forget it. I'm just going to increase the light, adjust the audio. You're not going to pay to the background. You're focused on me and what's on the screen here. So there we go. All right. So that said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please feel free to find me on all the social media platforms. This will be posted from. Hopefully you found me from between Spotify and all the other podcasting networks. And this will be on, of course, YouTube. And I think Rumble's a big one now. So, yeah, I'm going to be posting this on everything. So, hopefully the more people that find it, the more it can be helpful. And I hope you found it helpful, hopeful, and positive in any way I can. So, again, critiques. Critique me. If I can do better, I want to do better. I want to make this... It's not going to be a job. I want to give this the honor it is due. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Let's put it that way. All right. Peace.